news, at least over the last 48 hours, has been the talk of LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels. It's been national, it's been local, about him being the front runner of the Heisman. Now, you and I have been on the show, and we know it. We've been talking and saying that he's the best player in the country for weeks now. But what Jayden Daniels did against Florida last week, especially going back multiple times and rewatching the film, getting the all-22 copy, watching what he did, he even started off a little bit slow, not practicing a lot last week. Guys, he had his Heisman. He had multiple Heisman moments last week against Florida. The most yards that Florida has ever given up as a program happened on Saturday night in Death Valley. He went nuclear. 372 passing yards, over 200 rushing yards. It's never, let me say this very, very clearly. Nobody in college football's history has ever done what Jayden Daniels did to Florida on Saturday night. In my personal opinion, there are games such as Joe Burrow versus Oklahoma. And I am constantly asking myself if this is recency bias. Maybe a little bit of it is. But I don't know of an individual game that I've ever seen somebody put on a performance like I saw on Saturday night. Now, Joe against Oklahoma had 7 touchdowns. You can't take that away from him. Absolutely pure insanity. Pure insanity. What he did to Oklahoma. But Jayden had 600 yards of total offense, guys. 600. And 5 touchdowns. Yeah, I get 2 touchdowns are a big deal. I get it. I'm with you. I also remember that there was a red zone opportunity where they did not give him a shot to run the football in the red zone. They kept handing the ball off to Josh Williams. That should have and could have been another scoring opportunity for number 5. It is not missed upon me that when I look at Jayden Daniels, that he is, and you don't get this very often, the best player in the country. In 3 sports at LSU, you could make the argument. Now, Angel Reese, maybe not so much, but the 3 most are arguably the best players in women's basketball, college baseball a year ago with either Paul Skeens or Dylan Cruz, mainly a little bit more Dylan Cruz to some, and Jayden Daniels. LSU has been the marquee location for big-time transfers that come here and go absolutely insane. I know a lot of you, some of you maybe, don't like the transfer portal. Angel Reese is the best player in her sport, in my opinion. Paul Skeens was it, I'm just going to call it what it is. Last year, Paul Skeens was the best player in the country, the number 1 overall pick. And Jayden Daniels has the potential to be the Heisman Trophy winner. The leap that he has made over a year is astronomical. He's going to have 40 touchdowns, knock on wood, hope he stays healthy. Probably he's at 4,000 yards now, roughly. Could get to 5,000 total yards, maybe 45, 48 touchdowns. And he is the most electrifying college football player right now that I've seen. He is throwing the ball at 70% completion percentage. But everything he's doing in the air is just legit. Throwing the ball downfield, hitting wide open guys, going through progressions. All of that is great. Guys, what that young man can do with his legs changes the game. There is no difference in me. If Jayden Daniels ever wants to tuck it and run, whether it be, and I was saying this all last year, and a lot of you hated it. It does not matter to me if he gains 15 yards in the air or 15 yards with his legs. What he does in running the football, nobody but maybe one other human being on the planet right now, Lamar Jackson, can say that. Nobody. And I think, personally, Jayden Daniels' all-around season, he's far ahead of Lamar Jackson ever was in college. Not even remotely close, mainly due to the way that he's throwing the football. He's got, I'm going to call it what it is, he's got elite wide receiver play, and he's going to continue to throw it at him. Now, he's got Georgia State this week, but against Florida, the margin of error, it seems, every week for him does not get missed by me. It doesn't. Guys, he had a fumbled kickoff, okay? Well, actually, let's back up. Let's back up just a little bit. Game tied at 10. Zone read takes it to the house for 85 yards and a touchdown. Another score later, you would get to 24 points. Then Caleb Jackson would fumble the opening kickoff after Florida had a touchdown. ATN would score, you fumble the open kickoff, Graham Mertz gets a quarterback sneak in for a tutty. You're down. You're down. Jayden Daniels gets to his own 49-yard line, or to the 49-yard line, runs for 51 yards, takes the lead, scores again. I don't care about the losses. The losses have been an excuse. Now, I was asked by a friend of mine to go and do this. And I'm just going to go in recent history here of people that have lost more than 2 games and won the Heisman. Lamar Jackson's actually one of them. Guys, he's having a better year than Tebow. He's having a better all around. He's having a better year than a guy like RG3. He's having a better year than some of these dudes have had that have lost more than 3 games. Caleb Williams, as an example, is another guy that had 3 losses before he won the Heisman Trophy just a year ago. You literally let Caleb Williams, who had 3 losses, win the Heisman Trophy. You can't say the losses are a thing. And he's doing this with a top 5 schedule, strength of schedule. Number 4 to be exact. He's played one of the toughest schedules in the country. You're on pace to have 9 wins. Now, I don't know if he plays in the bowl game when you get there. I don't know. I would honestly, and I know a lot of you are going to hate me saying this, I would advise him probably not playing. If he wants to, good on him. If he wins the Heisman, I think he's got to play the bowl game, quite honestly, because no Heisman has opted out, at least not in my opinion, or not my opinion, in my memory. I don't remember that happening. But Jayden Daniels is going to do stuff for the team. He should shut it down, though. I mean, come on. Come on. But the biggest thing in all this Heisman run comes down to one thing for me. His defense is horrible. It's not his fault that this defense sucks. And I'm just going to call it what it is. It's not good. I know that Brian Kelly today in his meeting with the media, his press luncheon with the media, that he talked about, well, you know, Matt House gets a lot of criticism. Good. 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 But what Jayden Daniels is doing to overcome the outright chaotic and horrible defensive play will never be lost on me. Ever. Guys, in breaking down the Florida game, and I see we have some super chats. I'm going to get to them just a very quick second. I know Brian Kelly talked about the defensive line today and talking about how he likes their progression. I'm going to disagree with him and say I don't see it. I see Mason Smith out of position, multiple plays end on end. I think the best edge rush guy that we've seen so far this year is not Ovi. It has been Braden Swinson. He's got to play more. He had a sack fumble. Toviano, the true freshman, recovers it. Okay, but you could not get stops. And if Jayden doesn't do some of the stuff that he's doing, guys, you don't win. You don't win. I know a lot of you love Garrett Nussmeier, and you should. I think Garrett's going to be a really good quarterback for this team. I think Garrett will work himself into being a pretty good quarterback. He cannot do what Jayden Daniels does with his legs. And all of that being said, that's what has had to happen. And you've watched every game. I know that you've watched every game. I know that you've watched every game. With all of that being said, he's had to do that for you to win. Where would you be without him? I don't know if you'd be sub 500. I really don't. Now, maybe Nuss can lead you to some wins. Sure. Maybe against Arkansas he wins. Maybe he can pull one out against Mizzou. I don't know how, but maybe he could have. But we got to talk about what's going on defensively against Florida, man. When I look at this game and I look how you or what you did, okay, I look at Florida versus LSU. The first time in Trevor Etienne's career this was his first multi-touchdown game. Florida, and it's kind of sneaky to some extent, guys, they had 311 yards passing on you, which I would rather I'd rather them throw the ball on you than what happened in the running game. Another game of just outright just being – guys, they ran the ball just so many times right down your throat. And it wasn't – you remember the Ty Davis-Price game a couple years ago when LSU just ran the same play over and over and over and over again? It was a counter gap scheme. Guys, if you go rewatch it, that is what Florida's doing. I would say in the second half, probably 80% of their run plays is gap runs, pulling the guard, kicking somebody out, pulling the two back dudes, having a tight end come and seal the edge on the backside. You have one guy seal, one guy pull and get the push. That's what Florida did, and we did not have an answer. That goes on Matt House. That goes on your personnel. Greg Penn has seen a lot of football. Mason Smith's seen a lot of football. Omar Spates has seen a lot of football. Major Burns has seen a lot of football. Andre Sam, who didn't have really, was out in the second half because of a dumb targeting call, even in the first half, has seen a lot of football. Jacoby and Guillory has seen a lot of football. Trevor Etienne had 18 carries for 99 yards and 3 touchdowns. 5 yards a carry every time he's getting the ball. Montrell Johnson, another 70 yards. They lined up and pushed you around. And if you cannot get things fixed defensively, now you play Georgia State this week, I expect you to look somewhat moderately better defensively. I think you're going to be able to do some things. They're not a good football team at all. At all. But it's not just one thing that is plaguing this defense. They have injuries. I digress. Mekhi Wingo is a big deal. He's out for the year. I get it. But you have dudes along that front that were rated 4- and 5-star dudes that I am starting to ask the question how much development is happening at that position. I really am. I 1,000% am. Over the last 2 games, okay, you have given up 465 yards on the ground. 465 yards on the ground. That is not LSU standard of performance. In the air, you've given up 530. It's not a massive difference. It's just not the standard that you cannot play like this down the road and continue to have success. It will not happen. But here is the massive but. I know that it is not good right now. But pulling the Band-Aid off, I do think Brian Kelly gets things fixed. Now, you're saying, Blake, you're not recruiting at a high enough level. I am going to wait because I still think there's time to make moves. I think moves are going to happen before early signing day. And you have the portal. Here's the truth. Jordan Jefferson is your best interior defensive lineman. And there are going to be other Jordan Jeffersons that hit the portal. You're going to have to get a couple. I know that LSU probably wants to stay around the 5 to 6 players from the portal, be very selective. With what's going on at A&M, what's going on in other places, I think you can be a little bit more selective with more players, and you need them to get up front. I think Brian Kelly gets things fixed. I really do. He has had issues in the past as a coach, deficiencies, and the following season has gotten those things fixed. You got to give him credit there. I still have a lot of belief that he will get things done. I believe that he will make you an elite team. I think he can get you there. I do believe him when he says that. And I am just as high on Brian Kelly as I've ever been. His offense is way ahead of his defense. Unbeknownst to some, and we get tunnel vision, and I'm this way too. We got a little bit lucky. Maybe not lucky, but I do feel that there's some luck into it and some talent in this too. You got bailed out by a lot of seniors on your defense a year ago. There are guys on this team right now that maybe will have the decision to either go in the NFL or come back. You got to come back. You got to develop. You got to get better. You have to. And I will promise you this, and I have you as LSU fans should know this. Micah Baskerville being one, Damone Clark being one, Rashard Lawrence being a little bit of another. When guys come back for their senior years, historically, Jayden Daniels, historically, when guys come back for their senior year, the leap that they make from their junior year to their senior year across the board historically plays out better for them. It just does. It just does. If it were my decision, now, I don't know the financial situations for a lot of these guys. I think Mekhi Wingo, if he gets a chance, he needs to go. But there are guys that are on this team that if they come back, you had a senior-led group a year ago, and look how it played out for you. You had 4 seniors in the DB room. You had a senior at linebacker. You had a senior at defensive end. You had a very mature junior in B.J. Ojolari. When you have that much experience that goes with talent, I think Brian Kelly can sustain here. I think that he will. You don't want to hear that. It does not. You know what makes me more money or gets me more clicks? What would get me more clicks is coming out here ranting and raving in reference to fire Robert Staples, Brian Kelly sucks. I'm not going to do that because some of this is not true. I'm not going to say all of it, but I believe in what Brian Kelly is building here. It sucks. You have a national championship offense. Beyond that, you know what? You have more than a national championship offense. You have one of the best offenses that has ever been, you know what? Just assembled in college football. You do. You got a really good offensive line. You have a really good running back in Logan Diggs. You got depth at that position. I feel bad for John Emery, who Brian Kelly announced today that he had a torn ACL, and that sucks for him. Outright sucks. I hate it for him. But the imprint of the Florida defensive end, number 15, Wingo, his body sketch is still in the red zone of Death Valley where Josh Williams absolutely laid him out. You're a really good football team offensively. I will even go to say you're an elite. You know, if you've watched this show long enough, you know I don't like using that word elite. You are an elite offense. You're one of the top offenses that we've ever seen. And it sucks that defensively you couldn't catch up to that. But I do believe with some of these young guys that are announcing, okay, that they are going to, especially in the 25 class, Harlem Berry announced that he's going to be announcing his commitment, 5-star running back from New Orleans. You got Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in the country, the number 1 quarterback in the country in 2025. He's going to announce on January the 6th. These are when you're going to start seeing these things happen. You got to get the front 7 under wraps. You got to get the front 7 fixed because guys, I'm just going to tell you, I really do believe in my heart of hearts, moving forward, I'm not going to say there's going to be another Jayden Daniels. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to say there's going to be another Burrow. What I will say is this. I do think 2, 3, 4 years from now, you're one of, if not more of the most complete teams in the country. Offensively and defensively. All right.